Much more than this. I did it my way. Hey everybody, it's the Kill Your Gods podcast. This is Jesse Dram. He's the host of the Kill Your Gods podcast. I'm a comedian and a dickhead and a little intoxicated, but whatever. This is the show where we discuss things that people like and why they're gay. Not gay, dumb. Whew. What a heck of a week. Yes, we're going to have another bullshitting show. This is going to be a very short episode. I actually plan to get back to our regularly scheduled program. I have my good friend Jeff Roser coming on next week to talk about Boondock Saints. That's going to be fun. I don't know. Again, still dicking around with the format. Obviously, that'll be more of an old one. We're just going to jump around and do shit here and there. I don't know. I want to see what happens. Follow me at Jesse Dram on all the things. JESSEDRAHAM. Shout out to Problematic for hitting me up on Twitter. I asked you guys to send me messages, and he's the only one that did. I know people are downloading this shit. Talk to me. I just want to know how to make you fucking losers happy, though none of us deserve it. None of us deserve happiness. Cha-cha. I think that's a Marilyn Manson song. Anyway. So, yeah. We're going to get back to regular ideas. I got some stuff coming up. I'm looking forward to the Boondock Saints episode because I think that might be the perfect example of what I want this show to be about. A movie I loved when it came out, and in retrospect, it's like, oh, that's so fucking dumb. That was so fucking dumb. I'll give you guys a little preview of that episode. So, if you're a fan of horror conventions, that's where you can go and spend good money to take a picture next to the fifth guy who died in Nightmare on Elm Street 6. And it's so much more fun than it sounds. My friend met his wife at one of them. Shout out Joe Garifo. Check out the Pop Punk episode. I hooked up once or twice. But, one of my first big ones, I took my girlfriend at the time. And that particular weekend, it was the Boondock Saints, Norman Reedus and Sean Patrick Flannery, their first con appearance. And, them boys are having a good old time. Keep in mind, here's the interesting thing with Norman Reedus. This was about 2 months before Walking Dead debuted, before everybody knew him as Daryl. But my girlfriend was a huge Boondock Saints fan at the time. So we waited in line. We got our picture. She actually got a picture of both of them kissing her on the cheek, and she was so overwhelmed. Later at this convention, we're going to get onto the elevator to go up to my friend Tommy's room. Shout out Tom Kingsmill. He doesn't like me anymore, but we had a lot of good memories. We're talking about mental health, so we'll get to him. Trust me. Nah, that's not fair. That's not my story to tell. We're getting on the elevator, and we time it just right that we end up getting on the elevator with the fucking Boondock Saints. Just the four of us. And I'm playing Mr. Cool. Like, oh, shit, here we are. Yep. Just a couple of bros and my bitch. That's not me. I say that because it's funny, because it's not me. And my girlfriend, Farah, is just like, yeah. I believe the term the nerds use is squeeing. She's going, squee. And they're having their own conversation. But then Norman Reedus looks back, and he's like, oh, hi. And she just starts, like, blathering, like, I'm sorry, this is just so weird, because I just love you guys so much, and I love Boondock Saints so much, and you guys are, like, my heroes. And then Flannery says, like, come on, we're just actors. Like, we shouldn't be your hero. Your guy should be your hero. And I say, thank you, Sean. Thank you. So they end up getting off the elevator. They go to their suite and whatever. Later in the weekend, we end up in a hotel room with them. And it's a fucking party. Everybody's doing blow. I won't specify. I'll say this. One of the Boondock Saints was doing blow, and we were doing blow with them. And long story short, one of the Boondock Saints tried very hard to fuck my girlfriend Farrah. To her credit, she did not. Against her credit, she cheated on me with her ex the following week. In retrospect, it would have been better off if she fucked Norman Reedus. I said which one it was. It was Daryl. Yeah, that arrow shoots, let me tell you. Straight and hard. It would have been so much better if she fucked Daryl. But that's my Boondock Saints story. And that's going to be next week's episode. Again, I wanted to be this week, but Jeff just did not have the availability, unfortunately. So we'll be doing that next week. I'm going to talk today about mental health. Before I do that, I am going to play some music. Oh, God damn it, Christ on a cracker. This keyboard isn't popped in. Let me take care of that real quick. So, I wrote a concept album when I was a younger man. I believe I was about 20, 21. The concept album was called Patriot. It was based entirely on the premise that had I been 21 when 9/11 happened, I would have joined the military, and I am not built for the military, as I would have found out. So I wrote an entire mini rock opera of a young man who joins the military to defend his country, joins with his best friend, and everything goes wrong. Fuck it, it's not finished. He's out there, they're experiencing war, and then in an ambush, our protagonist kills a child. Well, what happens is the child, working for terrorists, the child accidentally kills the guy's best friend, who is the only reason he's there to begin with. Our protagonist turns, pivots, shoots the child, has a whole fucking meltdown of like, oh great, so I've killed a child, and the only reason I'm here just got shot. What the fuck do I do now? And the entire thing ends on an ambush. I thought it was a beautiful idea, but I am going to play the piano piece I wrote for that. That's one of the only things I can play well on piano, and it's only because I wrote it myself. And I'm going to play a little passage of this, and then we're going to talk about mental health. That's the wrong key. That's not right. I did not mean to fart at the end of that, but here we are. Woo! Kill Your Gods podcast. Speaking of exes, I have an ex. I think you should all follow her on TikTok. Her name is Anami Autonomy. I try to keep this ex at arm's length. She and I are friendly, but we were together a long time, and it wasn't, I gotta be honest, it wasn't the best relationship in a lot of times, but I'm very proud of her this week. She's been on TikTok for a bit. She has some health problems sustained not only from a genetic disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, Chiari malformation, tethered cord, but she has some complications due to a surgery she had, which the surgeon was not really upfront with all the risks involved. She, I'm very proud of her, went on TikTok and finally named this person, Dr. Rohit Verma, and her TikTok has 7 million views and counting. So, good on her. A little bit of justice. But we're not talking about physical health. We're going to talk about mental health for a little bit, 10, 15 minutes. I'm not going to keep you long, guys. I appreciate you coming around. Again, send me messages. Follow me at Jesse Dram. Send me a message on any of them, jessedram@gmail.com. Come see me if you're in the Philadelphia, South Jersey area. I will be doing the Flying Fish Brewery this Thursday, 2 days from the day you hear this, in Somerdale, New Jersey. That's going to be fun. We have people doing long sets. Oh, I also have an idea for a YouTube series that I think my old friend Josh Urson, I used to regularly call him up when I had an idea and just say, Josh, I've got our ticket out of this one-horse town. This might be, I have a very good idea I think would be good for getting YouTube views. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about mental health. And I'm going to give my own story. I have always been either sad or angry. I don't remember which came first. I know my aunt has told me, my aunt babysat me a lot, and me and her son Frank were the same age. If you want to go back and check the early chunk of the I Hate Infinite Jest podcast on this RSS stream, I believe Cousin Frank is episode 6. We're obviously very close now. But that aunt had told me when he and I would fight, I would get so blindingly angry. She said it was disturbing. It was like the Omen. Like a child should not be capable of being that filled with hate. Very lonely kid. I was very, very sheltered. I think it was a combination of two things. So my mother's best friend was murdered when she was 17 by a serial killer. Richard Bagenwald, the New Jersey thrill killer, murdered her friend Anna Olashevitz, and she has been a ghost that has hovered over my entire life. Check out the podcast Their Stories with Megan Getz. My mother actually went on that to talk about her friend Anna. But as such, my mother was very protective of me, and this was kind of isolating. Pretty much, I was raised around mostly adults. I had my cousins, who were my very close friends. But other than that, it was just adults all the time. Like, my dad would bring me to fucking parties and, insist I talk to adults about shit. The early lessons I learned were, shake a man's hand, look him in the eye, stand up straight, that kind of shit. Which is a good thing to learn, just maybe not quite so militant. But yeah, I was a lonely kid. Despite the fact that there was an elementary school a block from my house, I was sent to the school across town because our neighbors had told my mother the school down the street's the N-word school. Now, first off, racist as fuck. Second off, inaccurate. I mean, not really. There were a lot of Indian kids because there was an apartment complex on that side of town that just happened to have a lot of Indian American, families living. That's actually one of my favorite stories of being an American. I remember working at a pizza place and seeing a group of kids come in. I was in my late 20s, mid-20s. And this group of kids come in, and there's 2 Indian kids with them, and they just have, like, South Jersey accents. And I just had a moment of, like, that's fucking beautiful. I love that. So anyway, pretty much my mom was protective of me. I wasn't allowed to leave the yard. Then I got sent to the school on the other side of town. So any friends I made, I could not hang out with. My mother was also particularly annoying. She wanted me to be friends with the kids whose mothers she was friends with. And I think this should be the first sign that you have a smart child. If you try to make your child be friends with other people, like specific kids, and they're just like, if your kid is like, I fucking hate that person, they're stupid, you might have an intelligent child. This particular kid drove me fucking nuts because he was so dumb. The only thing he brought into my life was his father's Playboy collection, which gave me a lot of confusing 8-year-old boners. But overall, I just remember one camping trip. There was an episode of Hey Arnold, the Nickelodeon cartoon show. And there was a brief scene where a janitor working at a zoo is feeding fast food to a penguin who repeatedly vomits. So, as the journalist is doing this, the lamestream media and the penguins feeding the janitor, he keeps repeatedly saying, like, here, have a cookie. Oh, you tossed your cookies. Here, have a cookie. Oh, you tossed your cookies. This kid only spoke in that quote. He wasn't feeding anything. He was walking. He was walking over pine needles, and he just could not forget that fucking line. And even at 10 years old, all I could think was, I think I can murder this kid and I'll be fine. True story, when I was 19, I ended up, what's it called? There's no word for it. His girlfriend was cheating on him. I was the assistant cheater in that regard. So yeah, I was lonely. I didn't fit in. I was mainly around adults. And I was angry. I was angry that I didn't fit in. And I remember 4th grade, I was playing with my dog, Lucy, one day. She was a husky mix, so she was a mutt. And just playing with her, and suddenly I just broke down because I had the realization that, and I said this out loud, I said, Lucy, you're my only friend. And something that's been discussed and joked about in the family since a lunch period a few days after, I just asked the other kids, like, raise your hands if you hate me. And everybody raised their hands, and I cried. And I convinced my mom to send me to the other school, even though I was only there for 4 more months, and then we would go to middle school. Speaking of crying, oh, God, I told the story on stage over the weekend. I actually have a Batman villain origin story of how I became a performer. Preschool, so 4 or 5 years old, we were having show and tell. So everybody else was bringing in toys or books that are like, this is my toy. It goes like this. My dad stepped on it and said, God damn you, Robert. And I decided, like, you know what? Everyone else is doing tell. I'm going to give him a show. There were these VHS tapes. My mother or somebody had bought me one of them of Disney songs. And it was a compilation where it was like sing-alongs. They would have like the bouncing ball. It said, zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. Or beepity-boppity-boo. Or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Like, Disney just made up a lot of words for a lot of their fucking songs. Just like, a pink and pooper, dinta, how do you do? Give me $1 million for the evil mouse as long as you're not a Jew. Long as you're not a Jew. This is going to be longer than I intended. I decided I was going to do a performance of a song from that video. The Old Yeller song. A very upbeat song about a movie that ends with a fucking bullet in that dog's brain. Yeah, fucking kids' movies used to teach you, like, harsh life lessons. Oh, Yeller, sometimes you need to kill your best friend. Bambi, sometimes your mom's too slow for the bullet. Oh, I miss those fucking things. So I went out. And I sang the song, and the children pointed. And the children laughed at me. And I cried. And now, 30 years later, I still get on stage and I scream at people and dare them to love me. Oh, Yeller, come back, Yeller. Best doggone dog in the West. Yes, I hit those low notes as a child. Eventually, I hit puberty, and I was always like a lover boy as a kid, but in the bad way. I was crazy about girls, I think part of this was my mother and father were never married. My mother remarried, and they had their own 2 kids. And my stepdad, this is, I thought I might have been overblowing this, but I've since been told by other family members that pretty much once my little brother was born, I was persona non grata in that family. So they had like their own little family, and I was just this fucking barnacle stuck to it. And my theory is I would see romantic movies, romantic stories, romantic TV shows, and I would somehow develop the theory of, like, if you're in love with somebody, then you don't need that other, like, then you're the important one. And I have very early memories. My mom always jokes, like, oh, I remember you came home in first grade crying because Justine Bell broke up with you. Yeah, Ma, Justine Bell broke my heart. I wanted somebody to hold hands with on the playground. Justine Bell held up. I think she's still cute. But we're Facebook friends. We're both married. Who cares? Who's to say? I take you back any second, Justine, to right the wrongs. I remember another girl, just married actually, Lara Vasquez. Ooh, I bought into movies hook, line, and sinker. I just thought, like, maybe I'll sing a song to her. And I think I either sang or I sent her the lyrics to the song Angel by Aerosmith. Again, I'm 8. You're my angel, come and save me tonight. Pointing, laughing, Jesse crying. I reached puberty, and that brought on like a big depression. 13 was cool because I started hanging out with. I was like the weird kid that hung out with the cool kids. Although the truth is, there was a weird contingent of like chubby boy cool kids. Me, Ryan Gibbons, Kyle Lautenbacher, just like husky boys. But yeah, my first real girlfriend and my first kiss, Ashley Welsh, turned out to be a lesbian. I think I was her last man at 13. Like, she took one sampling of the man and said, My low self-esteem says, maybe if she'd tried with a more masculine, fit male, maybe she wouldn't have been so quick to jump. And not only that, she started dating a girl I had a huge crush on, Lisa. Oh, we were in Sunday school together, CCD, and I was crazy about her. We had the same birthday, and I thought that meant we were destined. This is really fucked up shit to be going on in a child's head. Reached middle school, I fell in love with a goth girl who was dating a goth boy. Long story short, I painted my nails and cut myself. What are you going to do? I got to date her for a little bit, and then she broke up with me to go back out with him again. To this day, every girl I was crazy about was in love with a fucking slender, lanky boy. And to this day, I look at myself. I'm a pretty decent build. I have a gut, but I've had dude friends tell me, like, yeah, to be your height, like 6'2", and to have like broad shoulders and like a big back and like big arms like you do, yeah, I would kill for that. So there's good shit in there, but I would trade it all to be a sleek little twink. Because those were all the girls I loved. They just loved them as skinny boy. The only ab I ever had was ABBA's Greatest Hits, because I am a dancing queen. Yeah, I cut myself a little bit early in high school. They put me on Paxil, which hilariously, my depression went away, but I became very aggressive, and almost every fight I got into in my life was the year I was on Paxil. I was just bodying motherfuckers. There was a kid who called me Jizzbrow because I have very, very light eyebrows. And I fought him one-handed with a Discman in my left hand, so I didn't even fight with that one, and I got tackled by a teacher. That was the last day of school, so they suspended me for the first 2 days of my senior year. A girl I was sort of talking to at the time called me the next day. She said, like, so and so who you fought just rode by the house on his bike, and he has your knuckles bruised onto his face. Never made it happen all the way with that girl. She was too hot for me. I almost pulled it off when I was 21 and then fucked it up immediately. So yeah, that's my experience with depression was much like that. It actually had very much to do with dating. My mom asked me years later, like, why were you cutting yourself? I said, Mom, I was surging with hormones and nobody would touch me. That's all it was. That's all it took. And that would be the bulk of my later depression as an adult when I was trying to date. If I just could not make anything happen, I would just get this worthless feeling, like a fucking bug under on my skin, like you don't deserve anything. And then my dad died, which is obviously, grief. Not mental illness, but it's the most, if you don't have mental illness, it's the most common pain you'll go through. And about a year after that, I started getting the panic attacks. Just a sudden, like, I felt, when I was on my 18th birthday, an ex-girlfriend of mine that I was very close to, Jessica Laskowski, died of a brain aneurysm. And in these moments of panic, I would feel tension in my head and my neck, and everything would get real swirly. Things get swirly still. I have a real, like, change in cognition when I have a panic attack. I one particular day I remember pulling over, just like I actually was only a few blocks from the place Jessica had her aneurysm, and I pulled over just because I 100% believed I am going to have a brain aneurysm and I am going to roll into traffic and I'm going to kill somebody, and I can't, like, please let it just be me who dies. Turns out almost the whole family has them. I just never knew. But so as many. I remember the first 6 months I didn't realize it was anxiety. I didn't have health insurance at the time. This was before Obama had put that thing in that you could stay on your parents' insurance until you were 26. So I was just convinced I was dying. I just didn't have the money to go anywhere. I went to the emergency room once or twice. Yeah. Was really bad. It fucked me up. If I had gone to if you ever have a thing like that, if you have a fucking panic attack or just feel like I'm dying, don't just fucking walk away with that shit. Go to a doctor. I would have saved myself so much fucking trouble if I had realized this was anxiety right away. Instead, I just lived in I felt like I was underwater for 6 months. Everything was just wobbly. Depersonalization, derealization. Derealization is feeling like you're not in reality. Depersonalization is like being attached from your own body. I had it all. I lived my life. It's funny, just before I came to record this, I was playing the original Resident Evil on an emulator on PlayStation. That was that was my main perspective. I was not behind my own eyes anymore. I would see myself like third person, like the way a fixed camera angle is in Resident Evil. It would get stuck in my head. And looking back, there were signs of this. I remember I was 8 years old, at home after Sunday school. I was watching Sister after Sunday school with Lisa, my little sweetie with the same birthday. You have to marry me. Think how much we'll save on birthday cakes and candles. And I was just thinking about class and just thinking, like, okay, so there's God and there's Jesus, and God and Jesus love everybody, and God and Jesus love me, and then I love God and Jesus. Can somebody hate God? Can somebody hate Jesus? What would that mean? Oh, wait a sec. I just thought I hate God and Jesus. Do I hate God and Jesus? If I hate God and Jesus, am I going to hell? Is the roof going to fall down right now? Oh my God, I think I hate God and Jesus. There are voices telling me that I hate God and Jesus. And going up to my mom, who's just like, dude, slow down. So there were signs. That's my point. Since then, it's been a thing. I've developed some weird phobias. Where phobias basically happen is that, for those of you who don't suffer anxiety or particularly panic attacks, I have to explain to people, like, it's not like I'm just afraid of something. Like, the way you are afraid of something, like, public speaking. Like, you're afraid of public speaking because it's awkward and it's weird. But my body literally goes into fight or flight mode when I drive across an unfamiliar bridge. It's not like, ooh, I'm scared, I'm uncomfortable up here. No, my brain is sending direct signals to my body of like, danger. There's a gun. There's a bear. Run. Why the fuck are you doing this? Get away. And it feels like you're dying. It really does. It is horrifying. And so I've had this for years on and off. I lost a job because of it, a job I'd been at for years. Shame, because I really liked the job, but I was just white knuckling it, and apparently that was enough that I wasn't prison. It was a fucking pizza place too. A fucking office would not have fired me for having panic attacks and being unkempt. This place just fired me straight away. A guy who had been like my surrogate father let me go. Such a pain, but whatever. He didn't understand. He's a good dude too. Shout out Mr. Ventimiglia, wherever you are. Swig a beer for the working man. I feel like my anxiety is mostly in control these days. I did, however, develop some phobias, which are a problem. Elevators. I already didn't like elevators. I didn't like height, and then a job I was at was in a building in Philly that had the shittiest elevators ever. You would get stuck frequently. I got dropped 3-4 floors on one once. That will fuck you up. I try to get higher and higher in elevators. I think the highest I've been in recent years, I got to the 33rd floor. Yet just something, again, just every molecule in your body is like, you shouldn't be here. You're in danger. What the fuck are you doing? And then I had another one related to that same job, and this is the one I really want to talk about. Hodophobia, the fear of travel. Also connected to agoraphobia. Really, it's all the same thing when it comes to flying or elevators or traveling far. My whole thing is I am so afraid of the panic attack. Because when you have a bad panic attack and it doesn't go down, the only thing that makes it feel better is like getting where you feel safe. And for me, that's home. So I would like drive somewhere and I'd see the city disappear behind me. And it's like every second you're getting further away from the only safe place you know. What if you have a panic attack? What if something bad happens? It's going to take you so long. It's going to take you forever to get back to the place where you can feel normal. I had a job at the time where I had to occasionally photograph live sports events. In this case, I had to go to Rutgers University in Central Jersey, New Brunswick. I had drank too much the night before. I hadn't slept enough, so I got in the car and I drove up for that football game, and I had panic attack after panic attack. It didn't help that my car was shitty and I was waiting for it to die the whole time. After panic attack after panic attack. After that, anytime I drove far from home, I'd freak the fuck out. Never had it before. I have taken road trips from Philadelphia to La Crosse, Wisconsin, from Philadelphia to Florida, from Philadelphia to Houston, and my big one, I moved cross country. I not only moved, I drove from Philadelphia down the southern route to San Francisco. So I've been around. Even with that previous experience, it was impossible to me. I met my wife, Perry, and she's been helping me with that. Before COVID, she took me on our first trip to New York. I hadn't been to New York in years. And God, she's such a sweetheart. We went up over the Gothel's Bridge, which goes from New Jersey to Staten Island. And she had queued up on Spotify, New York, New York by Frank Sinatra. That's why I love this woman. She's so fucking good for me. But even on that one, we were going to visit a friend of hers in Brooklyn. And shout out Tess. And on the Verrazano Bridge, it was just so high. And there's like an ocean on one side and a harbor on the other. And you feel so much higher than you are. That I had a panic attack. I asked Perry to fucking steer. And I was like just barely in control enough to do the gas and the brake. Um, but I made it. But I had a failure a bit late. Like, this is why for our honeymoon we only went to Easton, Pennsylvania, just because I told her, like, I know you want to travel and I do too, but like this is going to make me dread my wedding day because I'm going to know this is coming next. Every plane ticket I have ever bought, the moment I confirmed, I was swallowed with dread because now I'd committed to putting myself in this uncomfortable situation. I had a show booked at Broadway Comedy Club in New York City. My friend Anthony Pasquale had booked me there, and we went up to visit her friends in Weehawken, right across the bridge, the tunnel. In this case, the Lincoln Tunnel. And that day, we were going to the Lincoln Tunnel, and it was just a traffic jam, and I could not make myself do it. And it was weird because I had never been so scared and so ashamed and yet so certain this was the only answer at that time. Because for me, it was like, I don't have a problem with tunnels. If I go through that and I freak out, I'm going to lose my fucking mind, and then I'm going to be terrified of tunnels. And that was a big black mark for a while. But very recently, 2 weeks ago, we went on a trip to D.C., and I told her when we left, like, I don't see myself in D.C. today. I don't know how far I can make it. But we took it one step at a time. We made it to Baltimore. We got out. We walked around that beautiful harbor. And then once I was down there, I was like, all right, let's fucking do it. Let's fucking do it. We kept going. We made it down to D.C., and that was a big victory for me. Never got panicky. It's all in the anticipation. Because in the lead up, all I can think is, like, I'm going to be tense as fuck. I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm going to be stuck. The whole thing with panic attacks is that even the most familiar things suddenly feel unfamiliar. Your loved ones, your own body, they're all rebelling against you, and your brain just cannot handle them. So to already be unfamiliar and then be in an unfamiliar place is fucking terrifying. But when you go through with it, that's why it's called exposure therapy. The only way out is through. Once you're there, your only thought is, this is where I am now. And it's comfortable because it's not in some unknown future. It's where you are. So, if you're dealing with anxiety in any way or agoraphobia, again, the more classic agoraphobia is people who are afraid of crowds. What it really means is a situation you can't get out of. The only way out is through. You have to do exposure therapy. You got to subject yourself to that. And I mean, it helps to, what helped me psychologically was just knowing, like, that New York show was fucked from jump because I was on somebody else's timeline. Because then it was not only do I have to soldier through, but I have to do by X time. And that makes all the difference psychologically, as opposed to when we went down to D.C., where it was like, we're not meeting anybody. Nobody's expecting us. We're not trying to make an event with a specific start time. We can stop whenever. We can turn around whenever. And even though that opens the door to, like, I'm going to ruin the day for me and my wife, it also opens the door to, I am going to be able to take this at whatever pace or volume that I can manage, because I want to conquer this fear. I want to be healthier. I want to be. My mom said before, she said, like, you need to do something, get on medicine or something, because you're going to have kids, and you don't want your kids to see sad, scared, panicking dad. Because guess what? Genetics. Her father was the same fucking way, and it scared her. So, I'm working on it. I'm working on myself. That's been this week's episode of the Kill Your Gods podcast. Again, follow me on all the things. I might talk about spirituality at some point. I think what I'm going to do, just to test shit out, I'm going to start doing these once a month. These have been convenient because I don't want to guess right now. I want to crank something out. Realistically, I'd take a break, but I just don't want to do that. I want to keep this going because I like that there are people who are listening to this. I like there are people who enjoy it, and I like to think I'm helping some people by shitting on Dune. So we might not do any books for a while. I think books will probably move permanently to a Patreon. Actually, what'll probably happen is that'll probably be Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. I'll probably bring back Brandon Goran for that, who was fucking great. By the way, that's got some guys. I've met him not a few times. I met him tons of times. I would be able to clock him at 100 yards, but he's not somebody I ever had more than like a cursory conversation with. So it was really cool getting in with him and seeing like, oh yeah, all the cool things I already like about him are only magnified in conversation, particularly about shit we're both interested in. So keep an eye out for that. Me and Jeff Rose will be back next week watching Boondock Saints. If you want to take the time now, I think I'll do this from now on. Go on Amazon Prime right now. I'll probably try to give warnings a week in advance. Go on Amazon Prime, rewatch Boondock Saints, because, man, we're going to tear it a new asshole next week, just like Norman Reedus would have liked to have torn my girlfriend a new asshole, but he didn't. Instead, she went and fucked her high school boyfriend instead. You should have fucked Daryl. Farrah, you could have fucked Daryl. Damn. My name's Jesse Dram, and this has been the Kill Your Gods podcast.